not have a value for spending that much, in implementing some of those strategies. But part of best practices in terms of cybersecurity is playing defense, playing offense. Yeah, and not waiting for the disaster to happen, but making sure that processes are being assessed every time to make sure that vulnerability do not take place. Because the final goal, the reason why we spend so much money, invest so much in cybersecurity is to make sure that we have zero breach. We don't want to have it at all, because once that happens, the effects can be far-reaching, can be very, very devastating, and not just to individuals, just like the first speaker, the lady said, that it's not just the individuals that is affected. We're talking about the the reputation of a company, and that reputation of a company can lead to a massive loss. Can lead to a massive loss. I remember when the blue check mark was removed, and then someone made a post about a particular company, and that caused the company to lose millions of or cause their stock to go down, what millions of dollars, things like that can happen when vulnerability happens. And that's the reason why it is very important for us to play uh, defense and offense at every point in time. It also involves developing and implementing strategies to protect against threats, detecting and responding to events. So you have to continue scan and evaluate the processes, look through and make sure that um, all the processes, there is no vulnerability. Integrity is continuously 100%. You Um, it also involves continuous monitoring and improvement of security, improving the security posture of the organization, safeguarding sensitive data, securing critical infrastructure, and ensuring resilience in the digital ecosystem. So, there are enormous opportunities. It can't be overstated. Just like all the speakers have said, this is our lives. This has become our lives. A lot of a large part of our life is digitized. You know, and that means that there will be calls for people who have the expertise to be able to play a key role in making sure that our data is safeguarded, um, our information does not get leaked to unauthorized people and all of that. So cybersecurity field is experiencing rapid growth, and the workforce gap is in the tune of over $3.5 million. In terms of the um, positions that are open, opportunities that are available, and the global cybersecurity spending, you know, is far more than it has exceeded $1 trillion. Yeah. So and the salary for a cybersecurity expert is very competitive because their job is in demand. And I just want to touch on some of those roles, because if this talk is about cybersecurity opportunities, and it means that this should kind of serve as a kind of a guide or a roadmap for somebody who's looking at going into that field. So some of the roles are engineers, cybersecurity analysts, ethical hackers, security engineers, security architects, and CIS, so which is like top level, in that field. So I'm going to be going over some of this role. This is not everything. We can't cover all of the roles, but then we can just mention some of the ones that are very notable, and provide what the content of the role will be like. So for a network engineer, they usually would design and implement and manage computer network. So this is something that everybody can relate with, managing infrastructure such as routers, switches, firewall, making sure that all of these are up and running. This is part of the work of a network engineer. A network engineer also is responsible for troubleshooting network issues. So if there's a network issue, the network engineer will be charged with the responsibility of making sure that there is network availability and optimal performance. Um, and then they also make sure they monitor the traffic, you know, and they make sure that there's nothing funny, and make sure that all the security measures are in place. You know, they also help in configuring, maintaining network security protocols, like VPNs and intrusion systems, all the networks, all the infrastructure, that needs to be implemented. They are the forefront of making sure that those things are up and running, and they also collaborate with other IT teams, to make sure that security policies are implemented. Um, then we have the security engineer. The security engineer is similar, but then they focus more on the data part, you know. So while the system engineer, the network engineer is making sure that the network is up and running in terms of the hardware, making sure that they are working, the systems are working. The security engineer is doing the same thing, but focusing on the data, the information, how the information is being accessed and all of that. And they are involved in implementing and managing the security systems and technology, such as firewalls, antivirus, intrusion, but focus on the information that is passed around, focus on the data. They also conduct security assessment, audits, compliance with industry standards and regulation. They monitor systems network for security breach and suspicious activities. They respond to threats, and incidents, and they initiate whatever response procedures have been put in place, when there's an incident. Um, they also help design and implement security controls and countermeasures to protect the organization, the system against emerging threats. And then we have the information security analysts that conduct risk assessment and vulnerability scan, just making sure that they continuously ensure that there is no vulnerability, um, threat, and if they find threats, so that they can report those threats to the appropriate quarters. They also develop and implement security policies, um, procedures, and best practices. They monitor network and system activities, and they check for signs of unauthorized access, anything suspicious, they are on top of it. They monitor the network to make sure that they they get things information on top of that any incidents. They investigate security incidents and coordinate response efforts, and they also conduct security awareness and training for the employees. So uh, they kind of overlook the system as a whole, and then they also make sure that there's enough awareness within the organization in terms of the employee. I'll give myself an example. I work in a company, and recently we've had to take um, like a training and a survey, just to assess how how much awareness we have as staff of the company, to security issues, cyber security issues, and all that. Those are some of the things that information security analysts would do and ensure that are in place. And then we have the ethical hacker, and these people actually are charged with the responsibility of mimicking the intruder. So they understand how this thing works, and they understand how penetration is being done, how the hackers would want to steal information, penetrate the system. And so they use that to continuously conduct vulnerability checks on the system, and they simulate those attacks to assess and see how vulnerable the system is at any point in time. They use different tools to carry out this test, and they use both tools and techniques, they have to be on top of their game, in making sure that they know what the current trend is, in terms of how security is being breached. And then so they use those measures, against the system and try to see whether there's going to be an access. And then if there's an access, they can report that, you know, because part of their job is also making sure that if they find anything, you know, if I find any vulnerability, they're able to provide detailed reports and also provide recommendations on what needs to be done, you know, in terms of mitigating an attack. And they also collaborate with system architecture developers, you know, to mediate issues, you know, when it happens. And just like I said, they stay up to date, you know, latest hacking techniques because just like one of the other speakers said, the hackers are always looking for new ways, you know, to get into the system, to breach the system. And so the ethical hacker who is mimicking those hackers is supposed to be on top of their game and make sure that they are up to date in terms of the techniques that are being used to access the system. And then we have the security architect who are charged with the responsibility of design and developing security architecture frameworks. And this is more strategic in ways, and they come up with the systems, the structures, you know, the architecture, the policies that that provide protects the organization, that's the information that they have. They also conduct risk assessment and design security control to mitigate identified risk. So if they've identified risk, they design security controls to mitigate those risks. Um, they also review and approve installation of security hardware, software, things like firewall, encryption system, whatever software and hardware, they would usually be the one to approve, review, and then approve um, the implementation of those things. They also develop security policies, standards, you know, guidelines to ensure that there is a consistent security practice across the organization. So they're making sure that those policies are in place and there are kind of like guidelines and rules that will allow for the organization as a whole to conform to those standards and the policies they've put in place, you know, the framework that will allow for those things to be followed. You know. And they also provide technical guidance support to other teams regarding best practices. And finally, we have the Chief Information System Security Officer, which is more like um, at this point interfacing with stakeholders, you know, like someone who sits on the board, kind of, you know, like the CTOs, the CEOs, and CFOs, you know, and they lead the development and implementation of the management, the management of organizations cybersecurity programs, or whatever we've decided that needs to be implemented. They lead the development of it.